All right, guys, we're live. We are
Nope.
here. Well, I think we're here. Are you guys
Are
here?
we here? I'm here.
Yeah, hi, we're here.
I'm
I'm
pretty
still
sure
in
we're here.
2023, guys. Just hanging out. I don't want to go into 2024.
Too late.
You're already there, Brian. You're already
Hmm.
there.
Today, guys, we're here to talk about the top-rated fish show of all time, and
Oh,
the
come on.
fact that this.
I didn't listen to Big Cypress this
No,
week.
well,
Yeah,
Listen.
I'm confused. I didn't know we were doing 12, 30, 97. This is weird.
people broke.
Set closing 20-minute Mike song. My God, guys.
People broke fish.net. People broke our hotline. So it was so everything was so messed up. Look, and Maya, this is my daughter, Maya, who's watching. Hey, Maya.
Send it.
Hi, Maya.
Send it. I love it.
Nice. Great
So
name.
good.
Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about the MSG run and why everyone broke everything in response. First, I have to say that I want to give a quick plug that the Fish Studies Conference, a bunch of our friends are participating in that. It's May 17th and 19th, 2024 at Oregon State University. Again, it's going to feature a keynote speech by New York Times bestselling author, artist manager, and co-host of the Undermine podcast, Benji Eisen, and a bunch of other stuff. And of course, Stephanie Jenkins, who's the organizer, has put together a really cool agenda. But there's also a call for presentations, art, and performances, fishstudies.net. So we'll talk about that again. But a few of those folks are people who've been on this show, and there's fish studies happening. We're going to do a different kind of fish study here, but there is a fish studies conference. Guys, we are in 2024. We've said this before, but we're going to run down the top 25 tours of all time. We have the voting still happening up until January 12th. If you want your input inputted, then respond by January 12th, because that's when we're going to close it, and then we're going to take your input and we're going to do something with it that is yet to be determined, but we will do something
Stuff
with it.
that ballot box.
Stuff
Science.
That's
the
what
box.
fish fans
We're gonna-
do.
we're
So
gonna do
go ahead.
science.
We have
There's science. It's going to be done.
we have
We will
hundreds.
throw out all the ballots, but stuff it.
Guys, we have hundreds and hundreds
So
of
exciting.
responses already. Okay, so all right, what
Would you
should we
mind
ask
telling us what the 23 most voted tour is, just to get kind of an idea about the mood out there?
the 23rd out of 20? What's number 23 out of 25?
Yeah, I'm just curious what people are saying.
Yeah, I mean, I could do that. I can definitely do that. Let me just run I just got to call the intern quickly. Okay, so, but seriously, I do have to create a spreadsheet to get the responses. But let's just. I want to talk about
Leave them in
something.
suspense.
I want to talk about something, then ask you guys a question.
Okay.
I saw something today that was shared by one of my friends, one of my dear friends, who's a very great person and acts like a lunatic on the internet. But someone
now I know who
posted
it is.
on
That
someone
narrows it
posted
down.
on Twitter that if you say that you don't regret going to New Year's Eve, you are lying. and I just want to preface this with my own perspective and then ask you guys what you think, which is
Can I ask you to just if you say that you don't regret, so it's suggesting that everybody does, but they may be
Yeah.
lying about it. Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to
and
understand.
if you say that you have no problem missing the show, then you're just saying that to make yourself feel better, but you actually do regret missing the show.
Oh, okay. See, I
So-
did misunderstand that.
So I was never
Okay.
going to this show. Like I've only seen one New Year's show in 28 years of seeing fish, and New Year's Eve is not a thing I do, and I kind of knew what was happening, especially in the couple of days leading up, and I don't have any regrets.
What? Sorry. go
And
on.
do you? I don't have any regrets. My only fish regret, honestly, is missing Big Cypress. So that's still my
that's
biggest
one you
fish
should
regret.
definitely regret.
Do you guys have regrets about not putting things aside or making plans or going to this concert?
Yeah,
No.
similar to you, RJ, I didn't have any plans to go. I always spend New Year's Eve with my family, and I've only seen a few New Year's shows, and they're always fun, but I don't love being out in New York City on New Year's Eve. It's not really my vibe. but I kind of had a feeling this was going to happen too, but I was okay missing it. It was fun to watch at home. I think it was hard to know that you miss something that you've been waiting for a long time, but I don't have that kind of like rabid chasing songs or events anymore with fish. I feel like I'm so immersed in it that I just enjoy what I get. I feel like I see a lot of fish, and I don't know, the things that I've caught that felt really special to me, I didn't know they were going to be that way, and then they were, and that's kind of how I feel about fish. It's not the kind of like you have to be at that show to have an amazing experience at Fish. It's more like you're at a show, it's an incredible show, you'll remember that forever, as opposed to chasing certain events. And yeah, the only show I really have FOMO for is Big Cypress too. And maybe like the number show in Vegas, or just some random shows that I'm like, I wish I was like in the room dancing to that. But yeah, I don't know. I was fine. I guess I'm lying to myself, but it was fun to miss it.
I had my first kid in 1996, and since that time, long time ago, I learned that you can't see every show. And there have definitely been a couple like, oh, darn, that would have been great to see. And this past New Year's is certainly one of those. But I don't regret them. It's just this is my life. And so yeah, it's cool. I got to see what last New Year's, and that was great. And sometimes you see them, sometimes you don't. And I had a pretty good seat at home watching it on the webcast. Not the same as being there, of course, acknowledged. But
Does it count toward your
bathroom
stats?
line was real short.
Did you count it toward your stats, Jonathan?
No, I didn't.
Couch to our stats.
Brian, what do you have?
I'm in the same boat with you guys. I think the only, there are shows that I could have been at that I didn't go to. This was never a show I was ever going to have a chance to go to. Traveling to New York City over the holidays with two small kids is not really a thing that is going to happen in my life at this point in time. So I'm pretty cool watching this stuff from home. I think the biggest Fish regret I have is I had a chance to go to 1.0 show and I didn't go. And I had no idea at the time. Like, I wasn't a Fish fan. I just like had a friend from high school who offered me that. Like, that would have been cool to have that one show and see them in that setting. But that's life. That's kind of, I can't really choose when I was born. So I got to see Fish when I saw them. Once I saw like the Fuck Your Face show, like that was the first show where I was like, okay, I get why people say you have to be there for some of these. And I've seen a bunch of shows like that since then, where it's like you're there and there's like this level of energy that just like seeps through the room and it's coming home, but like being there, there's just something that you will hold on to for the rest of your life. But Fish now, they bring everything to us. It's like watching sports for me. I don't really go to a lot of sports games, but I love watching sports because everything comes home. You're absolutely right, Jay. That was I shed some tears when Albuquerque was played in Chicago. My God.
I mean, come on.
No, you fucked up on that one, dude.
Well, I didn't have life has been crazy the last 4 or 5 months. I had
is.
no chance of going back to Chicago at that point in time. But like, seeing it in the United Center, that was insane. No, short answer, I do not have any regrets. And your beautiful friend who's a psychopath on the internet is absolutely wrong.
Oh no, it wasn't him.
People up.
It wasn't him who said it. He just sent me something that someone else said.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember what it was.
Well, this is kind of an interesting comment too. It says, "I'm a new fan. 2 years of feverish listening. I appreciate the story and lore of The Man Who Stepped Into Yesterday, but a really jammy normal night has more replay value for me personally." And it's definitely something we've been talking about too, because I agree in that sense of seeing a show that doesn't have a gag or a gimmick is definitely, but that is amazing and that is transcendent, and the music just takes you to another level. For me, is almost more special in a way because it's not planned, it's not a big production, it's not something that like they're leading up to and that is kind of enhanced by something special like a gag or a gimmick. And I'm not saying that this wasn't incredible, because I'm going to spend about probably 90 minutes going on about how fucking awesome I think this show was. But I agree with this. I think that when you hit a night like a 12/30/97 or, the Chula Vista show in 21, where just the music is so incredible, that to me feels like the real magic in a lot of ways.
I mean, that's, I think, why, and we're going to talk about this, like why
Yeah.
some of us value 12:30 more than 12:31 in most years.
Yeah.
And this year probably different in that sort of standpoint, but I agree, like missing a big jam, like, no, I don't want to say that. Keep going.
I mean, it's always nice to be
I'm
there.
going to get in trouble for
Look,
what I was about to
let's
say.
all agree. It's always nice when you're there. There's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
ever being there. And can it be beat? Probably not. But is it the end of the world? Better not be, man. If it's the end of your world that you didn't see that show, take a breath.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like perspective. But the other thing I'll say, like to your point, like my 8-year-old son was sitting next to me throughout the entirety of Gamehenge, reading the Fish Companion as I like showed him my favorite shows, and he was reading set lists and reviews. Like that is
Aw.
legitimately one of the greatest moments of my entire life. And being like, dude, they're playing Gamehenge for the first time since July 8th, 1994, and him doing the math of how long it's been and how long they were banned then and figuring that out. Like I would never trade that experience for anything, even if I could have been there.
Well, this is how nerds are born. That's so sweet.
100%.
Totally. It's
That
his
is
origin
really-
story.
That's
That
awesome.
is really nice.
That's amazing.
I'm just it's just wonderful to hear all your stories.
Do you regret it, RJ?
No, not at all. But I like, no, not at all. And I just want to say that 1994 to today is the same amount of years as 1929 was to 1958. So I just want to like put that into perspective for you guys. Just think about.
Wow.
think
Is that
about-
true? Holy
I gotta
shit.
go take my Geritol now.
All right.
Good God.
So can we talk about this? About
Depression, World War, roaring economy. My
I know.
God, my parents were born. Wow.
Matt Higgins is back for a double comment.
Let's not forget about
Matt.
that, Matt.
Let's
We are going
go.
to talk about
We're
that.
gonna get
That
to
is-
that.
about it.
That
I
is
just
one
want
of
to
my
talk
We
about.
have
favorite
inside
fishes ever.
Gamehenge.
I just want to talk about the fishnet ranking fiasco, which is okay. So here's what happened. If you guys don't know, they being fishnet shut down the rating system. So if you want to go, if you were planning to spend tonight going through and rating all the fish shows you've been to, you're gonna have to find something else to do because it's currently shut down, and it's shut down because they put a very like explanatory blog post up today, which is a great. It's like the nerdiest way to explain anything. It's like, let me tell you why we took this ranking system down, and there's like 10 charts, and I couldn't really understand any of it, but I understood that there were many more ratings, that were like people would go in and rate Big Cypress as 1 star to get, or to 1 out of 5 to get the 12/31 show into the number 1 spot. So here are my quick things.
You might be a MAGA chud if.
I think that okay, so first of all, to think that rating art is so important that there's like a very specific way that you have to do it, and there are time periods when you can do it and can't do it, to me will never like cease to amaze me about fish fans, that there is like this very scientific and really like well thought through process about how to rate a concert. I just think that's like a hilarious idea in the first place, that there is a right way to rank a subjective live music experience is funny to me. But also, and I love everyone who runs that site, and I help out with a lot of stuff. This is like, people are paying attention to this, and people are looking at Fishnet, and people are going there to vote or look at it or see what's happening. And I think there's like an opportunity to keep people coming back to the site by continuing to let people rate it, or maybe there's like a new, I don't know, maybe there's like something else that people can weigh in on. But I just think I think it's a funny thing that kind of captures how ridiculous we are as a fan base, that there even is this system in the first place, and that it had to be taken offline because of abuse.
I mean,
I just think it's kind of
isn't it-
ridiculous.
And don't you
can't
think it
have
would all
nice
work
things.
itself out in the end? Like, don't you think it would all even out eventually? Like, people would relax,
Yeah,
the voting
it's a
would
long
change.
game.
I mean,
It's a
I
long
think it's a
game.
long game, and I also think it's kind of, yeah, it's fun. It's controversy. I would think you want that in a site, and yeah, I'm surprised they shut it down, but I think it's hilarious. I mean, the hotline, that was a joke that I said that the hotline was being abused, but we've gotten a lot of support. So people,
So don't
apparently my
abuse it.
joke did not land. I
Um,
tried to
thing-
use the same language of the fish.net language, but apparently it did not land.
I mean, well, apparently there are people like creating like new accounts and like
Mm,
things will if everybody just used their regular account and they okay, you want to vote 1 star to Big Cypress because but you're with your regular account, it probably wouldn't be so wildly skewing numbers. Ultimately, it wouldn't matter. I mean, I don't even rate shows that much because I find the system is kind of flawed. I don't really like ranking or rating at all. But I will admit, as you guys, we were talking about watching the rankings tw- go up and down. I did go in like 5 star Big Cypress because come on. And I was there. I feel like I have a right to say something about it. But I did not, by the way, vote for 12/31/2023 yet because just because I didn't, not because I had anything against it, just because I'm not ready to make that call. Same goes for all of like 1,975 other shows that I haven't voted for, one way or the other. People just need to like chill out, like the show, be excited. It's great. I love that it's exciting people, but like, come on, quit
yeah.
beating up this system.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it like you said something, RJ, about like there being a right way or a wrong way to rate or rank subjective art. I think that like the thing people get so crazy about is that like if this is rated at this point, it means that I had a better experience. When
Yeah.
like your experience is your experience. And like to me, as someone who loves rating and ranking stuff, I do it more as like an organizational way of like, how did this sound to me? How did this make me feel? What does this make me think about this band? At the end of the day, it's subjective. I'm in like an extended nerdy thread with two of our favorite listeners, Ryan Storm and Justin Bruce, where we go through and like compare like what are your 5 favorite jams of the year? What are yours? What does this mean? What does this say about the way you listen to music? I think almost of fish.net the way that I think of, I started using this site this year called Letterboxd because I got really big into watching movies, and there's a rating system and there's a ranking system and there's a list system and there's a review option. At the end of the day, I use that site to like keep organized what movies I've watched, what I felt about those movies, what they made me feel in the moment. And I feel like fish.net is the same way. I think like, yeah, you're going to see this spike in people saying, well, let's downvote Big Cypress, let's upvote this. But like over time, as you guys said, that's going to work itself out. And wouldn't this be a great opportunity to like throw a donate to the Mockingbird Foundation up on the site and be like, hey,
Yeah.
everyone's here. Why don't
Yeah,
you give
exactly.
$5 while you say that a show from 2023 is the best Fish has ever sounded or played or compiled a set list or all those other amazing but ridiculous things that people are doing because Fish gave us one of the most joyful experiences ever.
It's certainly a good opportunity right now
Get out,
for us
Glenn.
to say,
Get out.
I think that's
Or-
great. I think that's great.
certainly a
Glenn.
good time for us to say
I think if you're-
now to our listeners, go and donate to the Mockingbird Foundation.
Yes.
Because those guys who run that site are you're giving them a headache, or maybe not you personally, but somebody is, because they are all volunteers, and it is a great thing that they keep running for us, and they're going to work out a way to bring ratings back.
But is it a headache?
I think
I
it's a
think they
headache.
like it.
I
I think
think-
they
no,
like
I
to
think
do it
that-
though too. I think they
I
wouldn't do
think
it if they
that
didn't
this
like it.
thing,
There's a
this
gatekeeping
incident
to it
is
that
a
I think is
headache.
good. Yeah, but it's
And-
also exciting. And I think that's at the bottom line. What this is all about is that this band in their 41st year can get their fan base so engaged and excited that a lot of people think they just put on their best show ever. Like that is
That is
amazing.
exciting, but it's
and
causing somebody to have a headache, and that's why they had to kill the ratings.
But
I
it's
mean,
but
like,
that
both things.
that is the point. Like the whole idea of a site like this is communication and
Mhm.
debate and like
engagement.
And this, I don't want to get us too far down a track because I feel like we could just stay here for
Too
the
late.
whole episode.
Too late.
Sorry, but like, I was listening to a podcast about music the other day, the IndieCast podcast, and Stephen Hyden was
Terrible
talking
idea.
about how interesting it is that like certain artists get renewed and revitalized by a younger generation versus how they were discussed in a previous era. And he was talking about the Smiths versus the Cure, and that the Smiths have almost been canceled at this point because Morrissey's a prick, but Robert Smith from the Cure is amazing. He's like a great interview. They played great music, but like as a result, their music has been elevated over the Smiths versus what it looked like in the 1980s. And I almost think we're seeing that with Phish right now, where you have these younger fans who, rightly or wrongly, aren't like either aren't going back and like experiencing the 90s the way that a lot of us did when we first got into Phish, either because like we had to or because that was when you got into the band, and are hearing a show like 12, 31, 23 and being like, I don't know how this band could play any better. I don't know how a better concert could ever happen. Is that right? Is that wrong? Who knows? Like, it's the experience in the moment. The fact that this band is still giving people that type of sensation and that type of sentiment is a huge thing.
I'd almost like to put a pin in this right there because that is great. But we have like
that's
3
my
other
job.
shows to talk about.
Nah,
It's
that's
fine.
that's what
I've
I
been
was
here
about
long
to
enough.
say.
I can
Yeah,
jump
that's
in.
true. That's true.
Bass
Okay.
show it is. It's my favorite painting ever. Thank you.
Wow, look at that. And we didn't even
Wow.
know, many of us didn't know that there was a Blakesburg on the wall behind Megan until recently. Many people. Okay, so I would just keep the ratings open and it'll all work out over time, and donate money to Mockingbird. Okay. 1228 is the first show. And
Just like boom.
We're going to get
in,
through
we're
this in like 2 minutes. Don't worry, y'all. We'll get back to New Year's in a bit.
in looking at the whole run, I think it's kind of strange that I think musically 1228 might be my favorite show of the run musically.
Mhm.
I think there's amazing
Interesting.
communication. The gin is like the gin and the ghost, that combo to end set 1
Yeah.
is really pretty awesome. And then this huge wave of hope where I don't even know what's happening, but they keep like switching on a dime to different ideas over and over. And then there's this Mike Simple, like there's a lot of really good music in this show that I think is really interesting. I think it's the most interesting like improv of the run, but I think, I would go rate it, but I can't. So guys, what are your
Let it go.
we have a full segue fest in set 2, the Howling, into Wave of Hope, into Rift, which is always so odd in the middle of a second set, into Mike's song, into Simple, into Blaze On, and then those 2 big jams in the first set. I thought that was a really, really strong start. So that's my summary of night 1. What do you guys got?
I'm on pretty much the same page with you. I think as we talk about as we get into the next night, 1229, that had my favorite music in it. But I think as a full show, in terms of flow, in terms of set list, in terms of limited lulls in the overall show, outside of the 31st, 1228 had it. And you're absolutely right. The gin goes to end it. Neither one strays super far from the song itself. We don't really get into like full type 2 territory, but similar to the Mike song in the second set, we just hear a band that is like excited to play and has these new ideas that don't totally diverge from the path, but really don't need to. I feel like we talked about this with maybe the Blaze On and the Hartford show in our last 40 for 40, that like, sometimes a jam doesn't necessarily need to modulate into a different key or go into a completely different tempo to spend 15 minutes in a cool zone. And I felt like the gin and the ghost really did that in set 1. Set 2, this sorry, I'm just pulling up the set list again. This Wave of Hope, we've had a lot of really good Wave of Hopes in the last 2 years. We've been really, really lucky. I was talking to a friend about it today, just how amazing it is that, why Phish is moving forward. Obviously they looked backwards in a really cool way on New Year's, but I think we've all agreed like the new songs are the reason for it. And a song like A Wave of Hope starts up out of a new song like The Howling. I know how we all reacted at home. Like it started and we were like, oh my God, here we go. We're jumping into a jam already. They played, I think, the two best Wave of Hopes exactly 5 months apart in the same building, and two are completely different jams. The one that is the second song from the residency is just like pure hose, pure excitement, pure joy. Holy crap, we're here for the next week. This one is super dark, grimy. It's got a really weird segment of jamming kind of midway through. Then it shifts into this very power heavy sort of jam segment. And it's kind of this classic second set where you get on the back end. Mike's song, as I noted, really, really cool jamming within it, even though it didn't go outside the box. Simple gets kind of dark and weird. Blaze On ends on a high note, and then we get a four song encore that is a pretty rare thing. So I'll stop and turn it to you guys, but really, really enjoyed this show as a way to open.
I think that I'm going to work backwards a little bit because I want to start with your comment about Mike's song. I think Mike's song does get nicely out of the box in that, and they don't do the second jam, they do a first jam. Yeah. But Trey starts playing with his echoes and gets just like builds up this like to this great little weird ass peak in that jam that is just, it's one of my favorite things of the night. And then they close out Mike's song. They start simple. And I know I texted you guys. I almost turned it off because, of course, it's not Hydrogen. And I was like, God damn it. But I didn't. And the simple is good, too. It actually goes to similar spaces. It feels like once they get past the song, they're just continuing the vibes that they had in Mike's song. And then it lands in Blaze On, which is a little weird, unexpected. A lot of people are like, why not Weekapog? Well, because it's not. And even Blaze On has this like this jam that reminds me a bit of Plasma. And not the only time of the run that it feels like Trey might be thinking about Plasma, even if he's not actually going to go to the song. Interesting that it wasn't played. But really like that. And then the first set, I'm jump back to the first set. I would say Haley's has a nice little jam in there. Haley's breaks out just a little bit, some micro jam perhaps, but it's, you know, good sign of, I think, things to come. The Bathtub Gin Ghost stuff, kind of like what you said, Brian. It's very like type 1.5. You know, it's a little like hose jammy. It doesn't modulate, but they both rip. Bathtub Gin like really, really rips and then drops in a Ghost. And it's just a few minutes in, Ghost Trey just switches on the nasty tone. I don't know what button that is, but he's got it. He should just label it as nasty. And it's just like good, skronky. And then it goes tearing off into like kind of a type 1.5 hose jam, just roaring to the end of the set.
Almost a No Man.
Yeah. There's a little tease of No Men right at the very end, which I felt a couple times listening to this show that maybe Trey had been informed about some of our conversation at the end of the 40 for 40, because they call out a couple of the things that we talked about, like reprising stuff late in the show from earlier in the set, where they play a big Wave of Hope. They land in a Blaze On out of a big jam sequence. Like all of these things we had just talked about earlier in the week happened in this show. And I know Trey's not listening, but I like that it just kind of bubbled up right there.
Or is he? Or is he?
He's got better things to do. And
I mean, I've been on record that they should put a rhombus around them at all times. So
yeah, exactly. So anyways, I really like this show. Megan, you were at this show, right?
No, I went the next night,
No,
which
you
when
went
it
the next
happened,
night.
yeah, I went the next 2 nights. And when it happened, I was like, oh, great. If this show's good, are they really going to be able to keep this juice up till 12:30? And they weren't really. But this show I thought was excellent.
That's called foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little foreshadowing there. I thought the show was great. And if you want to hear a fun recap that I got to do with Benji Eisen and Mike Greenhouse from Relics, you can see that. It's in our feed. We got to do a fun live show at Hill Country Barbecue. It was really fun. But yeah, this show, you know, it's really interesting. I think there's really strong playing throughout, really great set listing, like you guys have mentioned, opening with No Men, you know, 4th time it's ever opened a show, just coming out with one of their big songs, I think is kind of like a power move. And I felt like the whole first set had a really strong, energized feeling to it. I thought that Jim had some really beautiful playing, especially by Paige. Trey was doing like really complex runs and playing with a lot of control. I thought Trey's like dexterity and tempo throughout the whole run was just really top shelf and incredible. And yeah, I thought the last 30 minutes of this set were just so strong, and you've got to be feeling good with this Jin and this Ghost. And then the second set, I know some of you are not fans of the Howling, but if you are going to put it anywhere, opening set 2, I think is perfect.
spot.
It's like
It's
a
a good
great
spot.
warm-up song before the big giant jam. And I love that how they're doing a lot of that playfulness in this set with you've got the Howling kind of callbacks in the beginning of Mike's song. You've got the No Men at different parts of the Ghost. Like I think they were having a lot of fun in this set and pulling back and playing parts of other songs they played earlier, which I thought was really great. And then, yeah, you guys have spoken really well on the Wave of Hope, but the mics I just want to talk about a little bit because this was definitely my highlight of the show. Love this. I heard this a lot on the run, especially at 12:30. That was kind of the strongest thing they did on 12:30 was when they layered the 23 effects on top of like the 97 cow funk. They did a lot of that over the run, and it's sick. It's just so fun to dance to. It has so much, it makes the funk and groove from 97 feel spacier and also just kind of like grittier and really interesting. And that was the first time I heard it on this run was during that mics. And this mics is like a perfect argument for the micro jam. You know, you don't need to go crazy far sometimes. This is like just over 10 minutes and it hits so good. Absolutely love the mics. And then you've got a really fun encore too with these 4 songs coming on, and Mercy as an opener for the little mini set, and the encore is great placement too. I thought the show was fun.
I didn't really talk about Wave of Hope, so I'm gonna just drop this here, and you can decide if we're gonna move on. I was kind of meh on this Wave of Hope. It's just like, yeah, it does a lot of things. It felt disjointed, those things that it did. Like they would come together and they'd kind of fall apart. And I respect that they pushed on and kept trying to come back together, and they would do that. It was just kind of, eh. I've listened to it again, and it is not my favorite of the large jams in the run or of the jams in the show.
My goodness.
I think it's interesting because like I have an opposite reaction. I found all the little things that they did to be less like they were finding, I don't know if you're saying this, but like less they were finding like dead ends and more they were just like testing something out. And then like there was almost maybe dexterity is the right word, but like a curiosity, like just as the onset of the run or jam vehicle that works really well right now, that they would just kind of hop. The one point that I hear in the jam that I think relates to what you're saying, there's a very stark shift. Like they are jamming in this kind of languid, spacey zone, and out of nowhere, Fishman's just like, nope, we're playing faster now. And it just like takes off, and it kind of shocks you every time you hear it. And I think that is like the one area where I hear what you're talking about.
Is that when he got on the wood blocks? Like, is that when he did? I can't remember if that, like my notes. Yeah, there's like an unhurried feel, really exploratory. And then he gets on the wood blocks, and I liked it. It kind of adds this, like, it kind of pushes it in another direction. And then Trey goes into like that kind of like arena rock god over these like monster sounds. And I thought this was really fun.
Sometimes that feels like an out, and there were parts of it where it felt like it, where it's just like, all right, let's speed up and let's just go to the peak. I thought that they reined in a little bit more exploration, but it's interesting. This is the beauty of subjective art.
Yep. All right.
Yep.
Tony, thanks for tuning in. We will get to Harpua, I promise, very soon.
But no, we can't jump right to it. Things happen in order.
Well, sometimes.
No, we have to talk about my favorite show of the run.
12:31. All right.
The late night gig after 12:30 with John Badesky and Nels Klein and Billy Martin
and Metzger. That seems that would be cool.
Yeah, that was real good.
Megan, 12:29 reminds me of the great Charles Dickens novel A Tale of Two Sets, which I thought was a good read long ago. What a pretty crazy contrast between those two sets. My only thing I want to say about this show is I just really, you guys know me. I'm like, you guys fish, you do what you want, and I'll support you. But using Mountains in the Mist in the middle of a kind of like disjointed set, like you could you can land in
Yeah.
Mountains in the Mist out of, any improvisation, but to like just play it
This wasn't the
standalone kind
place.
of in the middle of the set felt a little bit like a wasted song to me, but also the set was just a little a little
Yeesh.
snoozy.
I was just sad the whole time because you weren't with me, RJ. RJ and I were supposed to spend this show together, and RJ couldn't make it. So I went to the show, super fun. I got to spend the show with Ryan Storm, and we had a blast. But the first set, we just kept looking at each other like, okay, this is feeling very, very standard. What is
I-
Jordan saying? He never needs to hear it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
Okay,
don't
I'm
know.
gonna just
I
like
don't
take
Each
a
know.
their own.
moment.
But
Wow. Okay, Jordan. I didn't know this about you. Wow, you're such a
I
warm,
used to not
loving
care for that
person. This
song.
is so shocking. Yeah, I love Mountains in the Mist. It's just that set was already suffering from a little bit of like, like bleh feeling. And it just, there's some nice moments. I think that the theme from the bottom is probably the best highlight of this set. It's the last two versions at MSG were really memorable jams. So I think when it started, I was like, okay, here we go. We're going to at least have something here. It's one of the only blissy peaks of the whole show, which is kind of fun. It's really shimmering and interesting and a lot of like delicate playing and really soaring notes. And it's really pretty, that theme. It's probably the only thing that was like that interesting. I think Evolve suffered a little bit. I love that song. I've been waiting to hear it live. It's my first time. But Trey sang a lot of the lyrics an octave up, and it was a little distracting. And that was too bad. But this first set was definitely, especially closing the set with Drift. I feel like, wow. It was great. I ended the set. I had a full water bottle. I had been to the bathroom. I was like fully like ready for set break. I could just hang out.
got
I
a
didn't have to like, take care of any
pretzel,
business. Yeah, I could have
daily
like eaten a
burger. Like
meal.
you were ready.
I was good. I was like, I've done
Pocket
everything you need to
sandwich.
do at set break before set break. It's great. But the second set, this is
Well,
a perfect set of
let's
fish.
stay on first set for a second. I want to come. Can I
Okay, sure.
rebut slightly? Only slightly.
Please rebut away.
Stash is my fucking highlight. That stash is real good. It's short, but it doesn't waste any of our time with this major key kind of blissy bullshit. It goes dark minor key. It fucking gets a little bit
True.
weird. It doesn't get
Those are
super
Liz Reed
weird,
zone.
but it's really a solid fucking stash. This is
Mike
the kind of
sounded so
stash
good.
that if they're not going to do it for 20 minutes, this is exactly what they should do. And by the way, they're not going to do a 20-minute stash. It's not going to happen. So do this. You want a blissy peak? You got theme. Or any other jam of the night, probably.
You want a blissy peak? Go
peaks all the
somewhere
time.
else.
Stash does
Get out of
exactly
here.
what
Go
Stash
see
needs to
Goose.
do.
You're back.
And this one is great.
That blissy bullshit out of here. All right,
Get out of here.
Megan.
It's true.
So, anyways, I like the stash. I thought the rest of the set was fine. Just
Yeah.
fine. I didn't hate it.
I agree.
It just, it's just fine.
I went to do dishes at one point during this set, and my wife called to me and said, "Why don't you come back in here? We can do the dishes at set break." And I was like, "I'm all right. I can hear it."
I'm good.
Yeah, this was a set. It happened, and it went on longer than expected. The first set on
did.
It's true.
the first set on 1228 went for about 79 80 minutes. This set went over 90 minutes, and we got a cool Michael Franti segment during the set closer. Can we talk about the second set, please?
Yeah,
'Cause this-
Yes, I
think
tried
we
to
owe it
move
to
us
Megan
in.
to let her carry on with set 2 now. I appreciate you.
Because I have a hot take about the second
Talk
set,
about
but I would like to
Stash.
hear Megan's experience.
Oh,
because
a
Megan
hot
was there,
take.
which means that your experience was better than mine.
Matters most. Yeah, it was better than yours for sure. This was the best set of fish I saw all year. I absolutely loved it. It was perfect. It was
Wow.
so much
Big
flow,
if true.
jams. Yeah, I looked at my other second sets, and this is my favorite one. It's just hard to pick a highlight because to me, it's
Of the year or
really
all
a-
time? Sorry.
of the year. Of the year.
Okay, this is your
Definitely
favorite
not
you
all
saw.
time.
This is
My
your favorite
favorite
you saw.
second set that I saw all year. Yeah. So
Okay.
I didn't see 1231, everybody. So, there's that. But I saw a lot of good fish. I saw 13 shows this year. And so out of all of them, this was my favorite set that I saw. It's so energized. It's so creative. perfect set listing, flow just on point. Obviously, starting with that chalk dust when they opened up, Ryan and I just looked at each other. We're like, okay, let's like, let's do it. I don't know what happened at set break. I don't know what they said. I feel like maybe they pulled into a huddle and they were like, we need to get our shit together, guys. Like, come on, like, let's go out there. Brian, what do like sports teams say to each other during like set break?
It's like what
It's
they
not called
what they
set
say
break.
after the first set of the
Adjustments.
Went. They're walking off stage. They're like, "God damn
Yeah.
it, what the hell?"
Yeah. Somebody like broke
They came back
something and
with the
then they're
fire.
like, yeah,
Fish
they came
releases a
back.
box set, starts with a really horrible first set. 7 sets to redeem ourselves. They still haven't released the box set of The Great Went, which is ridiculous. But
What the damn hell?
Yeah,
Sorry.
what's up with that? But yeah, this chalk dust, absolutely love it. At 5:21, you hear them launch into the jam, and the intent of the whole entire show just changed right before our eyes. Multiple section jams, at times stunning and soulful, and at other times just wild and totally unafraid. The first few minutes, Trey's just exploring, and Fishman starts crashing these cymbals, and the whole band is just echoing each other in unsettling riffs and tones. At 9 minutes in, they come ashore and just these washes of sound from percussion and synths. Trey's playing with like delicacy and a soft touch that just really allowed the band to find its way organically. And I think the biggest thing that stands out about this jam is just it is completely driven by all of them. There's no one leading. It feels like full band communication the whole time, just total exploratory improvisation. It flies by. It sounds so intentional despite being totally improvised. And I think there's so many different moments in this jam that you can hear them choose to keep playing, like keep moving forward. You've got the repetitive riffs and then you've got the woos, you got a couple times, but they don't let that go on too long, which I appreciate. There's like a distortion that takes over, and then they enter that really dark layered space, and you've got the space lasers and like the washes of synth, and Fishman is just driving relentlessly. It's really scary. And then by the end, Trey starts playing these like really sustained notes, like 19 minutes in, and you kind of grab onto that and you're like, okay, we're gonna head somewhere safe now. But no, you're not. You're going to be like attacked by giant robots that are like crushing everything, and there's just going to be like all these weird noises, and they're just like going to be stepping on all the metal, and everything's going to be like falling apart and crashing and burning, and you're just going to be trying to escape and crawling out and like trying to emerge from under their feet, and it's just going to be this like terrible thing, and it just ends, and it ends in oblivion. Like, how fucking perfect
you're
is that?
dying. You're going to die.
Fracking
Going
will
to
kill
die.
us.
It's oblivion, and it's just
It awaits.
perfect because it's 17 minutes of just like another just journey, which is totally different from that one. It's more rhythmic and really bubbly and effortless, and it has like a nice little crescendo, and it kind of soars through the last few minutes with a bright and hopeful tone. Like, who would think that would come out of oblivion? And then they come back to the song in a beautifully perfect way in this jam. And I think that, 40 minutes of music was worth everything I paid to see Fish for 2 nights. Like, that was,
Mhm.
and then to land in What's the Use? I mean, I couldn't have picked a better landing point. And it was so perfect. And the juxtaposition of that noisy end to Chalk Dust to the quietness of What's the Use is like, oh my God. And then when they went into My Friend, I thought I was gonna die because this is perfect set listing. This song has that dark, foreboding, weird, and it's just, it's had some really big versions this summer, and you could tell when Trey started yelling, like, "He's got a knife," in that crazy way that they were just gonna go there again, and I love how this song is so dark and then just ends in this, like, really funky layered jam. Mike sounds amazing. I think Mike might be my like, what is it? Not VIP.
MVP.
MVP for this week because he sounded incredible. He was like turned up in the mix. My ear often found him, and I thought he sounded incredible in this jam too. Got a great segue into Sand, really groovy, bluesy jam, just energized little blistering peak at the end. About to Run kept the energy high, flow on point, shred fast for Trey, and then there's just nowhere else to go but to end in Hood. And it was an absolutely beautiful Hood. Lyrical phrasing from Trey, just gorgeous, crystal clear tone, Fishman like shimmering on the drums, just one of those like heart swelling, perfectly played versions of Hood. So that's what I think about that set, and I loved it. Brian, what's your controversial take?
Well, I don't have a
Hated it.
controversial take. I have a very hot take that I think that this Chalk Dust Torch is the number 3 jam of the year. I think it was
Yes.
monumental. I would like to just read a quick snippet of my notes because I think that they say everything. There's a segment around like 13, 14 minutes where I wrote Trey leading the charge with gorgeous riffing, gorgeous in texture, jamming. And then I just wrote in the next line, my God. And then I wrote krautrock ambient with a jazz drummer. And then I wrote, this is like the greatest music I've ever heard. And that like summarized pretty much everything about how I felt. Like there was a moment on the couch where I was like, I don't think I've ever heard better music, like ever played in my entire life. It's an outstanding jam. Chalk Dust Torture has had a really cool year. This version and the Hollywood Bowl version just stand out to me as, you know, we talk so much, rightly so, about how new songs are the guiding light for Fish and the reason why this band is continuing on and sounds as fresh and full of ideas as they do 40 years in. But a song like Chalk Dust was a rock song for the majority of its, like, for that glory period of the 90s of Fish. It was a 7-minute set or show opening song, and it has expanded into on level of what Tweezer was doing and what Mike's song was doing and what Ghost was doing. All these big jam vehicles in the 90s, that's what Chalk Dust Torture is now. And I know it had a few versions in 1.0, a few versions in 2.0, but every time it's played now, it is a jam vehicle. It's an outstanding jam, and it goes into Oblivion, which is my favorite Oblivion of the year to this point in time. It's 17, 18 minutes, but it gets so much happening within that. You get page synths like almost immediately in the jam space. You get to this zone that's like a dystopian lullaby that I loved. There's like a groove jamming, hypnotic robot sex is happening somewhere in there. It's like the movie 2001 is happening like in the music. It's absolutely insane. You get a really well-earned peak that like is creative. It's not just like let's turn on the bright lights. It's Trey riffing. I think that the return to Oblivion is done really nicely. And then I won't go into too much detail just from a flow standpoint, but like I think everything Megan said was spot on. The set has, you know, what you want out of a second set, which is this kind of narrative journey that you go on, where you go into some weird jam space, and you come back to a place of familiarity, and then you go back out again, and you come back. But what is the safe space? What is the ballad that we're going to fall into? It's what's the use? A really eerie and creepy song. And then you're going to go into my friend, that like is always super eerie. But this one goes into like a King Crimson type of jamming space. This is the second type 2, my friend of the year. My God, we've had like such great creative playing in this song. It's incredible. And then the Harry Hood, it's delicate. It's beautiful. We get like kind of krautrock lead from Trey towards the end, but then this outstanding peak that I don't have the notes on the last great Harry Hood that was played. I think that we're in a zone of Fish history where Harry Hoods oftentimes go into jamming spaces and then go into a really well-earned peak period or peak zone. So it's just like we're in a spot where Harry Hood is played really well on a pretty regular basis, but this was up there as I just thought an excellent performance. And then giving us Lonely Trip and Carini, just like shocking us in the encore with, the rare encore Carini it was stunning. So I loved this. I thought Chalk Dust and Oblivion were the clear highlights, but this is, for my money, you sit down, press play on this set, you're not going to skip anything.
Yeah, I'll keep my comments short, but this Chalk Dust is the jam for me of the run. This Chalk Dust is just gorgeous and weird and everything I need. The Oblivion, you mentioned the kind of like major key peak before they fall back into Oblivion itself, and to me that sounds a little like a Sigma Oasis. Almost sounds like they're playing Sigma Oasis there. It's similar. It's similar Oasis. And then and I love that. I like the What's the Use call there. The jam out of my friend is super weird, and it's late. I've been up now. This is my second night like streaming Fish. I've been up kind of late for me, and I was just sitting bolt upright watching that. I was riveted. It was so good, so fun to see. Just an outstanding set.
Great show.
Great show.
Great
Capsule
show.
review.
Can I share
show.
one stat that I thought was
Great
really
stat.
interesting about the show? Lonely Trip was the 5th song of the night that was debuted since 2019. That's a lot of new songs in that show.
Wow. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
This is like the new song show.
I mean,
Yeah.
but its average on the debut years was still only 2001.
Mhm.
Which is crazy. That is
Yeah.
because I'm looking at 1230. What is 1228?
Am I looking at the right show? Yep.
1228 was 99. Yeah, 1229 was 2001, and then 1231 was 1993, which means it's the best.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happened next, right? It was just 1231, right?
Yeah.
That's the
Well,
show that came next.
No, you
Yeah.
spent another night in Manhattan, didn't you?
Oh
Another-
yeah.
another
Oh yeah,
evening?
I did. I
doing
had a lot of fun.
Breakfast show?
Mhm. Yeah.
What
I had a lot of fun
happened
that
at
night.
12:30?
Well, I had really high expectations. I think you know that this
That'll
is my
get you.
favorite night of Fish, and this is the only night that I try to be on the floor at MSG because there's just something magic about being on the floor at 12:30, and my girlfriends and I like to go down there and dance and be kind of in the stew, and I don't see anything because I'm just too short, and I just feel, and it's great. But for some reason I had an amazing spot where I could see the band actually, and I could dance like crazy. I wasn't up super close or anything, but I had plenty of space and we had people around us dancing, and I had a really great time despite this being a pretty average show. And thank God for Life Saving Gun, my 15th favorite song of the year out of all the music I listen to. I love this song so much, and this was definitely the highlight of the night. This jam is awesome. I think it's definitely, when they started off, a lot of people I could tell were kind of like, what is this? And I was so excited because I love this song. And the fact that they took this out at the end of the first set is just, to me, speaks to just how inspired they are with all their new music. And this jam is incredible. It starts out really energized, really grooving, some wah pedal. And about 6 minutes in, we get these like screeching synths come in that add this like demented layer over the like kind of updated cow funk groove. Just sick. I've listened to this jam like 3 times. It is so good. At 7:24, Fishman starts crashing the cymbals. Trey starts taking some really gnarly, growly riffs. And by 10 minutes in, Trey has that like hopeful tone back. He's playing some like really optimistic peaking runs. Fishman's on the cymbals and Paige is on the piano. And there's just these rolling peaks to finish with really triumphant percussion, hands in the air. Great end to a first set one. And I think the other highlight of this set is the Fuego, which really starts off type 1, but changes about like 8 minutes in, again with the synths. And by 12 minutes, again, they're in a really groovy, dancey space. And this is something that they did really well in 12:30, was find that funk and that dancey space. And it was really fun. Again, think like Mike for President. He was so good during this Fuego jam. The first set was that was kind of it for the first set as far as my highlights. The Wolfman's was fun.
I like the Wolf Bands. I thought it kind of grooved. It was slow. Like
Yeah.
it's not a. It was a little slower than one might expect, but it enabled the groove. It was probably very dancey at on the night. A little micro jam situation there. Kill Devil Falls is a total ripper. It's like short. It's absolute shred. I actually kind of really liked that. But Fuego is, that's your type 2 jamming for the night, pretty much. And I liked it. I liked it. I love the landing in Train song. It's charming, a rare treat. I think they played it once earlier this year. And then, Life Saving Gun. It sounded like, wow, that just absolutely ripped. I mean, I saw a lot of people who were not loving the set come back, at set break and say, well, it saved the set. Well, I don't know about that. They called it Set Saving Gun, I think. That's clever. I don't think the set was that bad, but it's definitely a pretty awesome song.
I think it says a lot that this show would be pretty solid played on a Tuesday night in any other city in America. It is. It's the fact that it's this night. It is like, this is not like a great Fish show. I'm not making that argument, but it's not bad. It just doesn't fully connect.
entirely a paper tiger. It is everything you think you want to see in a Fish
100%.
show, but
Totally
absolutely
agree.
none of the depth that any of those songs should
Totally.
achieve.
It is. I've seen that set so many times at Dick's on Saturday nights.
Yeah.
And when that 2001 dropped, I love seeing that in the venue. It's always fun. The lights are always great. I totally get it. You groove. Some people like to groove on the floor with their friends. Like people have their fun during that song. But like that was the most predictable placement for that song coming out of a golden age that was going really nowhere. I share your guys' sentiments. I thought the Fuego was really interesting. You got these cool washes of noise, really like kind of cosmic, ethereal jamming towards the end. That was really cool. Fuego has just had an awesome year. If you have not listened to the Berkeley version in a long time, please cue that up. That is some just like contained, syncopated, evil Fish, just amazing stuff. The MSG version, the last 5 minutes of that jam from the summer is my favorite music I heard all year. This version was in that ballpark of just really creative, really cool. That like this song that used to be a set killer in a lot of people's minds has gotten to this point where like wherever it's played, it just leaps out, and the band has so much to say within it. And then Life Saving Gun is right in there with what we have all been saying about new songs, and the fact that new songs are, you're going to hear a 20-minute Life Saving Gun in 2024. It's just going to happen. Like the way that they play that is the version before the version. And we're going to look back on that and be like, that was a shifting moment in the band's history where yet another song came up and is going to open up a second set, and it's going to blow our brains. The second set is a paper tiger. I don't have anything else to say about it. The David Bowie, when it started, I said, maybe. And I texted one of my friends who was there, and he was like, no, we don't have enough time. We don't have enough time. There were some cool ideas, but
Can I talk about that David Bowie? Because I think that's my only part I would listen to, and did even go back and listen to, of that set, because I like the David Bowie, but again, and I've said this a few times this year, first of all, they placed it just as your friend said, no, we don't have enough time. If this David Bowie had begun in the number 2 slot or something in a set, might have gone somewhere maybe, but it didn't. It wasn't there. It instead is really like a perfect type 1 David Bowie. Like they can play David Bowie now. Now go for it. Please. I've been standing on this box for a while now here on this podcast, and I'm going to stay on the play fucking David Bowie for real box for a while. But it was well played. Didn't do anything. The show was over when they started it.
I don't want to burst anyone's bubbles, but we've been saying that about David Bowie since the Mexico 2020 David Bowie. If you go back, that is the first one to be like, ooh,
because
there's something more.
Fucking it up for all of 3.0.
And everyone after that has been that exact reaction of like, well, we got 12 minutes. Can you guys fit it all in? I mean, even RJ saw the best one he's ever seen. Sorry, I don't mean to keep bringing that up, but
yeah, I mean, it's true. But
Exactly.
however, the good news is that we'll see a good one someday. I don't know. There is no good news about David Bowie.
Yeah.
But
it will.
They brought back Gamehendge. They will bring back David Bowie.
There you go.
But I do have
Yeah.
But I do have good news for everyone who's been here waiting for us to talk about the top ranked Fish show of all time for some time before it was unranked and then disabled, which is
disabled.
We'll be back next week to talk about 1231.
Take us on a break.
Yeah. Wait,
right,
before we do, we do
nope,
RJ. Yes,
no
one
more,
more thing.
there's literally nothing else to talk about.
There is. We knew
there's
that
not.
the set wasn't
There's
going to be
nothing.
good when the wow was only 6 minutes. That's it.
That's
Go.
fair. It was a kind of a train wreck.
It was clearly they didn't know that they found the bottom of the well too soon.
I didn't even know they could play the well for 6 minutes. I thought it had to be like 12 minutes for
I
sure.
looked at my watch and I was like, I actually don't know what's happening. We're in for it.
All right. So there was, much like the stream that I did, I turned it on and it was at the end of set 1 of New Year's Eve, which is fine. So set 2, guys, what set us up here? Because does everyone know in the building what's happening once Down with Disease starts? or are we still like?
I don't.
I feel like that's
I
kind
mean,
of
I
a
can.
troll, right?
How many eye
Like,
rolls
Yeah, that was a great
and
troll.
laughs
it's a
when Down with
troll, right? It
Disease
was like, we're
starts,
gonna
right?
do a classic set
Yeah.
2 opener with
Yeah.
Down with Disease. I think it's fucking hilarious.
Well,
So
yeah,
good.
my
Come
immediate
on.
reaction was like, oh, because based on what we had heard, I expected them to come out, and I expected almost.
Harpua.
Well, no, I kind of expected the way that the Great Woods show starts, where it's like a Gamehenge adjacent song, Llama, which we'll get into
Mhm.
that aspect of all of this, and then like an NO2 into Gamehenge, and that was kind of what I was anticipating. And when they started with Disease, I was like, oh my god, how did I forget that they haven't played Disease yet in this run? Like, cool, we're just gonna get a jamming. Like, so there have been years where the second set on New Year's Eve was the best set of the show,
Yeah.
if not the run, and it kind of
Mhm.
felt like that was how it was starting, and then they turned it back,
8 minutes later.
and then you knew. That's when you were like, okay, you guys are
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
with us.
Yeah. Brian here, attendance bias. Brian in the chat here comments correctly. The gag is usually in set 3. They come out, they fuck around a little bit, old lang syne, then the stage turns into
Yeah.
a freaking sailboat
Yeah,
or something,
exactly.
you know. And
Yeah.
so having it start in set 2 wasn't really expected for most of us. I know there were people in the building who had seen a kayak backstage, you know, like, so probably people sitting around the back or whatever and all that, but like, you
Yeah.
know,
Oh, the old kayak. That'll tell you everything you need
yeah,
to
that'll
know.
clue you in. Well, there's one song that has a kayak in it. So,
Well,
Dork.
okay. What happened here? So they start Harpua and everyone loses their minds, right? And then, so the lady and the guy come out of the floor, and
well, the guy
then
comes out of the floor.
guy comes
But
out of
wait,
the floor.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
and
go
before
ahead.
that, Trey talks about how they're playing their 83rd show for a band
Yeah.
that starts in 1983, and then he starts mentioning all of the different like Harpua and New Year's Eve gags like within the Harpua narration, and I was reminded that Trey is that guy who tells stories to his daughters, like makes them up at night. That's something he used to do, and he's someone that wrote musicals with his mom. That was, to me, when I was watching Trey during that part, I was thinking like, that's who Trey is, and this is the culmination of all of that for him, and I was just so excited for him, and I think their biggest theatrical performance of all time, for them to have pulled this off, and I was thinking about the full circle nature of this, and I think watching Trey throughout this performance, nobody was having a better time than Trey.
He was
Yeah.
definitely having an amazing time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how?
And when
so,
he calls Jimmy's dad a gaslighting asshole, that was really, really funny.
yeah, yeah, that was pretty great. Okay. So, guys, how do you want to tackle this? Because we can, on one hand, they did Gamehenge. We all know that. How about we talk about what was most fun and notable for everyone about this whole thing?
Yeah, let's just
Perfect.
pretend that it's all one thing. And although I'd like to talk about this existence of the set break in the middle of it, I
Yeah.
think that otherwise, let's just take it as a whole.
That can be your thing.
Okay.
You can have that.
Well, I have probably more than that one thing, but I do want to. I'll talk about that. So I thought it was weird. Okay, so first of all, Gamehenge is amazing, but like I thought it was like, oh crap, they're going to take a set break in it. It was both weird and kind of great because it opened up this like moment, 15 minutes, which I think I texted you guys. That means it'll be a union 15 minutes, so 25 minutes to where we could talk about like what's next. I mean, we knew Forbidden
Mhm.
Mockingbird had to be coming up, but what else? Like, and we I think between us agreed that Possum was probably likely on the table and like all of these things. And no, we didn't skip the rhombus coming up. We just don't have enough time to go through every single detail exactly as it happened because you
But
could
maybe
just go
that'll
watch
be
it.
someo's thing. Maybe that'll be someone's thing.
Yeah, somebody else's
I'm just going to read
podcast.
the fish.net note.
Oh,
so
good God.
people
Perfect.
don't risk
I have to get dinner
Going
sometime tonight.
to fish.net and voting on this show. I don't want anyone to risk that, so I will read it to you.
But I kind of like, I was kind of mixed that they were like gonna take the break, but they did start the gag in set 2, so we got to go. And oh yeah, and there will be a New Year's countdown somewhere here, and that was almost an afterthought, right? Like they're just kind of like, oh, by the way.
Yeah.
And I the whole thing was just great. I was sitting on the floor in front of my television with the stereo blasting and the TV big screen in front of me and just grinning like a freaking kid on watching Saturday morning cartoons. It was so awesome, so fun, so creative. And, I've seen a variety of like micro criticisms and whatever, and I don't care about any of them because I'm so glad they did it. Like, it's great. Is it over
Yeah.
though? Is that it for Gamehenge? Is Gamehenge dead?
I don't know how they top it.
Who
I think
knows?
it
Yeah.
resides in
It
the
just goes sideways.
yeah, like I, I don't know how to totally talk about this, which is a problem because I like to podcast. I guess the thing I keep coming back to is that the two things that impressed me the most were one, and it takes some knowledge of the band's history to know that they've never played the exact Gamehenge like more than once. I think the 294 versions are the most similar, but the 88, the 91, the 93 from Sacramento, and then the 94 versions, there are variations, and there
We've
are
all
some songs
seen
that
enough science fiction or Marvel movies to understand the concept of multiverse, right? So these can
well
all exist and be canonical, even though they're different.
well and that but also like to me, this is an evolving story, and part of the I think the problem I remember the band non Trey having in when they decided to abandon the
Mm.
CD-ROM was like, does the story arc is it really satisfying? Is this whole like cyclical like you get powers so you become evil? Is that really like the message that we want putting forth? And this shifted that, and this gave a different perspective, and this introduced the importance of punching the eye to Gamehenge earlier on and kind of set the tone, and then going into AC/DC Bag and that becoming this huge jam that brings on the multi-beast. And so you're switching the placement of Tila and AC/DC Bag, but you're doing it for story purposes. We don't necessarily need to meet Tila until a little bit later. We need to set the tone here a little bit more about what Gamehenge is like and what is happening, what are the battles that are going on beyond the immediate story. And I love that aspect of it. You reference Marvel, like I think of Star Wars almost. I think of a lot of fantasy and sci-fi, the way that you have the one story, but then you can branch off and you can give depth to the story in a way that you didn't have before. Could they do this again? Yeah, there's like a different world where this sort of stuff, is shaken up again, and they give you a different perspective on it all. Um, so I loved that aspect of it. I loved the fact that they gave us a different take on it and didn't just give us the 7/8/94 version that I'm guessing most of the fan base is familiar with because of the Dinner and a Movie and it's been officially
Mhm.
released. Also the fact that there was a jam in AC/DC Bag. But I think just big picture wise, like Fish played Gamehenge. Like that is
Right.
just
Yeah.
something like I became a fan of this band in 2001. I was introduced to Gamehenge early on as this like great lore, and it was like one of those things was like, fuck, I don't know how I'm gonna go back to school. Like I got into them over summer break. I was like I got so much to learn about this band. Like I have no idea how I'm gonna go back to like geometry class now. Um, and I remember like getting laughed at in PT threads early on when I was like, "Do you guys think they'll ever play Gamehenge again?" They're like, "Get the fuck out of here, you noob," And then like they came back and they were bringing back like
First
Foreman's
thing I've ever
Mockingbird.
agreed with from PT.
They were bringing back like Harpua and all these cool little things, and then that the Jemp Truck set that is such a classic like Nectar's fish type of set, but they never touched Gamehenge. And there were moments where they could do it, like those of us who have been to Watkins Glen, like on a beautiful day, that looks like Gamehenge, like that feels like Gamehenge. They could have done this, but they held it off until this moment, and the fact that we got it is just one of the most special things, if not the most special thing that this band has ever done for us. Like I cannot believe it was fan service, but it was also a new take on it, and all of that I'm just filled with love and gratitude for this band.
It's absolutely fan service. So let us acknowledge
Yeah.
that. This is Trey knowing that this is what people want, but it's also Trey service. Like that dude is, as you said, Megan, like no one enjoyed it more than Trey. Like you could watch him just watching this play out in front of him as he's playing these songs and having the best time.
I mean,
So
Trey's a theater nerd, and
Yeah.
this is a theater nerd's dream. I mean, thinking about what you were saying, Brian, as a fan in the 90s, you always thought you were gonna see Gamehenge again. Like I couldn't
Yeah,
go to
it'll
the
happen.
Clifford Ball, and everybody was like, "You're gonna miss Gamehenge, like, you're an idiot for not going to Clifford Ball." I was in Europe, and we were like, "The last night of the Europe tour, they're gonna play Gamehenge for us." That was stupid to think that, but, there was just always this idea that you were gonna get it because, they had just played it in '94. It wasn't like this thing that hadn't happened in a long time, and then it kept not happening, and I kept, like, getting let down about it. And then I finally was like, I don't actually care if I see it again because they never will play it, or they will and I won't be there. It's fine. And the way that they did it, I felt like was such a complete triumph and so perfect. I was reading, because I'm a nerd, I was reading the process paper for Trey's thesis, The Man Who Stepped Into Yesterday, this week. And in it, he defines composition as combining parts or elements to form a whole, and says that's what he's really the best at doing. And at this point in his, I guess, kind of musical career life, he thought that's what he was the best at doing. And he talks about how he started with, the poem with the lyrics to McGrupp and the song Wilson. And he uses that as the basis for this story. And he talks about how he kept this giant notebook all year, and he would write down ideas and musical notes and phrases and words that he liked. And he used that to put together the story. And I was thinking how much fun this year must have been for him, because he's been working on it all year, to think about the different parts of the story and compose it in a different way. And the fact that they were able to do that and be so successful with it and make this updated version with incredible Broadway actors and dancers and singers and these beautiful, incredible puppets. And the fact that they were able to incorporate jamming into that and let the music tell the story. Brian, I think we were texting and you said that they really allowed the music to tell a lot of the story. And I thought that was really smart and really fishy. And I think they did kind of the perfect amount of narration and the perfect amount of theatrics. It wasn't distracting from the music, but it was also embellishing and making it such a production. It was incredible to watch on the screen, and I'm sure in the room it was just so fantastical. So I think it translated in both, at home and in the room, which is just hard to pull off too. I think that's something Fish has gotten so good at, is making a production that can be seen in multiple ways. And I think that they totally nailed this. And for me, watching from home, similar, Brian, I mean, I have teenagers, so they weren't as invested. They don't think it's that cool, but they were like, "Oh, mom, it's Gamehenge," and they wanted to watch it and see what it was. They left and read their books and looked at their phones later, but they were interested in it, and realizing that this is going to be something that you can show kids and you can show people, and it can become this thing that turns people onto the band. And I thought it was just an absolute complete success. I didn't love the set break. I think it worked fine, like an intermission would in a play, but I didn't love it because I wanted to see it as like a complete piece. It doesn't really matter. That's just really splitting hairs. But I thought the whole production was incredible. And I thought ending the way that they did, there's an argument for just ending it. And then there's this argument of this idea that, the mountain is a volcano, and then split open and melt happens. And it's just like this sick jam out of that. And then they play Yem, which is just the anthem of Fish. And then Loving Cup, the Man from the Mountain. And you're going to have this like rock and roll moment. It just felt so right. And then this wild dance party in Possum, which, is or is not in Gamehenge. And I just thought,
Oh, it is. And it has been
it
for a
is.
long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. So they're tying all this stuff in and making it, I think, just so thoughtful and playful. And I couldn't believe it. I thought it was so masterful and just absolutely perfect.
How great was that Split Open and Melt? First, let us acknowledge, somebody here
Mhm.
says it was Melt was a song of the year. I don't know if it was a song of the year, but it was a good song all year. And this version was outstanding. Um, I was also ecstatic when they dropped into Love and Cup, probably because I'm an old fan and it's a song they were playing when I first started seeing them, and it's always fun. And it did. You're right. I'm the Man from the Mountain is perfect. It's just perfect.
Yeah.
And
So good.
I was super happy when they dropped into that, and then I was ecstatic for RJB when they dropped into Possum.
He was so
There's
happy. That was when you had
no
your
other
regret.
way. There's no other way it could have ended. I will
Yeah.
say that just if you've listened to the Man Who Stepped In Yesterday, which we all have, and I'm sure everyone listening has, it was confusing to me when they played the songs like not in that order, because the story is told in a specific order per that
Yeah.
original recording. Like Tila
Mhm,
comes
mhm.
like the part where Tila comes in is right after the Lizards, right? And then before
Right.
Wilson, and then that
You
like sets
yeah.
up. So I was a little bit confused by the song's order, but it didn't like, I'm not mad. I'm not going to like rate it differently or anything, but it
Only 3
was,
stars now.
it
When you can
was
rate.
when I can. I'm saving, but I don't know. It's interesting
Charlie's gonna be so
because
mad at us.
I know I'm preparing to get the messages.
We love you, Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, you guys kind of said everything about it. It was a really, obviously, I think a couple people have mentioned just like that the energy in the building was just so high, which you can kind of get from the webcast, but
Yeah.
not really. You know, like you can just
But you
we're
can
we're
totally understand it
oh yeah,
as a
yeah.
serious fan. Like, of
Yeah,
course it's
definitely.
high. There's no
Definitely.
way people weren't go. First of all, energy on New Year's, and I'll say this because I know you haven't been to many New Year's shows, RJ. Energy on New Year's is always high. It's
Mhm.
always
Yeah.
high.
The party.
It's a party. People are ready to throw down. They're expecting a little spectacle. Great. It's always fun. New Year's shows are a blast. And then fucking Gamehenge? Are you kidding?
I know. Die.
Yeah.
So great. So great. I understand why people who weren't at Big Cypress want to put this like as the best show ever. I totally get that. They need to chill out a little bit, maybe, but that's not the point. Like, this is a good show. First set's a little meh. There's a reason why we skipped it. But this shit is legendary, and it is a great gift from the band to the fans.
So do you guys think that they knew they were going to play a 20-minute AC/DC bag, or like do you think that improv was
Yes.
Part of it
planned?
had
Because
to
it
be,
was
'cause,
it was
like,
pretty awesome.
the multi-beast like comes in through the end of it, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
she was on the floor for a while. It took a long time coming from the back and then around the back of the floor and then up on Mike's side. And so it was, I think, by design, but that's a great design because they haven't really jammed AC/DC bag like that in a while.
That's sick.
So we'll take it.
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest takeaway of the whole thing for me. That
Yeah, I
and,
mean,
and how awesome the sloth was. The sloth was
Sloth
just
is hilarious.
So
Sloth's
good.
hilarious.
The
Move
bastard
so
gin.
slow.
I mean that's the longest. I think that's the
Yeah.
longest AC/DC bag since Coventry. Pretty sure.
Yeah, it's the longest since
Wow.
then. They've played a few jammed out versions in summer 22. But this was the one that just like it left AC/DC bag behind. And it's a really interesting, Megan, you were talking earlier about like the 97 funk and the 97 jamming with like the 2023 effects. This was like a Trey Hendrix jam from fall 97 channeled through 2023 Trey. And the way that
Yes.
the way that they had the camera positioned at times, like it would go from looking up at Trey where he just looked like a rock god, and then it would go back to the multi-beast coming around and it's just like wobbling its head and it
So
looks all
sick.
creepy and stuff. It was so cool. Yeah, I mean, this was a couple things I was thinking as I was just looking through here though. When you start with Disease through Tweez Reprise, the newest songs are First Tube, Down Disease, and Tweez Reprise. Like those are the
Wow.
newest songs that are played across two sets, which
That's
for a
pretty awesome.
band that we celebrate how much they focus on their new music, which they should, it is very cool that on this 30th and 40th anniversary, they take a step back and go, hey, let's play what set the foundation for everything. And
Yeah.
for everything that we love about Fish, like without Gamehendge, like that foundation is really, really important to the aura around this band, to the idea that you want to learn more about this band, that there's, it's like Jonathan said, it's the Marvel aspect of them where there's always something else to explore. There's always something else to dive into. And there's a reason why people are so obsessed with, their fantasy franchises and science fiction and stuff like that, because the creators behind it give you a new world and then they just fill it with ideas and endless possibilities.
Ugh.
Can I just also say one thing
Oh,
about
Yeah.
the backing vocalists, which was, I mean, I think the Divided Sky, Lizards, I mean, all of the songs that had the backing vocalist Melt, I
Mockingbird.
thought Mockingbird, it was
Oof.
really great. And I'm like I'm into Joe Lampert on
That's what I
Wilson.
wanted to say.
Yes.
Hell
I
yes.
think
Yes.
we're
Oh my
like
God.
just bring Joe
Bring
Lampert
her
on
on
tour
tour.
just for Wilson.
She was
It's pretty
so
awesome.
sick.
Just
Like
fly
when
her in one or
first of
two
all,
nights a year.
having like a woman sing with Trey. Oh my God. I was like dying. I was like, this is the duet I never knew I like really needed in my life. Her physicality, she brought it so hard when she was like on her knees and Trey was playing to her. I was like, what would I
Yeah.
pay to be this woman right now? Like anything. Like she was just like, I was just dying. Trey was loving it. Like the vibes, she delivered so hard. And I thought her performance was unforgettable. So
Absolutely.
thank you for
And
bringing her up, RJ. I wanted to do that too.
Yeah.
Pretty sick set listing as well. Going Llama, Wilson, the Sloth. Like that is some heavy, heavy
Right?
hitting fish.
And the
right
sloth
there.
was fucking amazing. That's the guy, the person doing the sloth. I mean, that was pretty epic. That was like the
Yeah.
best of all the just because it was so funny and it like
Yeah.
worked so well. Andrew says the tightness of the playing is being undersold. Not always
Agree.
a given.
That's a good
Well,
point.
yeah, we
True.
just haven't
That's
gotten to
Mhm.
it yet, but it's absolutely right. The jamming, the performance of the songs, not just the jamming, but like the performance of the songs was really high level. And some of those songs aren't always well delivered, which is part of why we don't see a lot of Mockingbirds.
Also, I just want to
think.
say
Do you think
I saw Andrew the night before this. Just so hi Andrew.
nice?
Okay.
Do you
What
think
else, guys?
that's what they recorded? Maybe did they record an album of Gamehenge? Is that why they
Okay,
sounded
can
so
I
tight?
talk about the other thing that I texted you guys so much about?
Yeah.
Is that Grandma had her script in a gatefold LP that had the rhombus on the cover, front and back, and surely that is a real LP that I'm going to be able to buy any day now, right? I have a stack of American
I would
dollars
assume so.
that I'm willing to transmit to the Fish organization in exchange for
They're
this
just
LP.
waiting.
Like sell
Waiting.
me the LP.
They're waiting for the
It looks sick.
rankings to be turned back on to see if it's actually going to be worth it
Tell
from an
me.
investment standpoint.
Hey
I'm a
guys,
GLP.
sorry. I want to interrupt with one more important comment just because it's good for me.
Yes, I like
Hold
that.
on.
Yes.
No,
'Cause he
sorry.
walked away.
This one.
Oh,
Andrew owes me one because I encouraged him to go. We were together at the Disco Biscuits on the 30th, and he said, I have tickets to Disco Biscuits tomorrow night and Fish tomorrow night. What do you think? And I said, absolutely go to New York. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah,
So-
that's the right answer.
Yeah. So basically, Jonathan, what you're saying about the story is it doesn't matter that the story was different than the regular story because it's just now it's like a different story or a different kind of this story.
Everyone, like, this doesn't ruin, if you were at Great Woods, this doesn't take away from anything that happened there. This is just a new version of it. You know, it's like, how many versions of Batman do we have? Some of them are good. Some of them, the costume has nipples, you know, but, you know, it's fine. You know,
At least Uma Thurman absolutely rocked it in that one Batman and Robin. Horrible, horrible film, but she
not
killed
seen
it.
that movie, actually, for a reason.
And Brian, do you have your list? Do you have your list of movies that came out in 2023 that you're going to go through right now?
Oh,
you
no,
want me to?
no,
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 no.
I've got my top.
that's
my
for the
top
bonus
tier.
episode.
My
That's
God.
the bonus
It is.
episode.
Should we tell everybody
Um,
about bonus episodes? Go ahead, Brian.
Yes.
Sorry, you were going to say something.
Well, I loved this comment because this didn't even hit me until Anthony just said it. If you want to nerd out, this was the only Gamehenge with a real Wilson song with the entire crowd chanting Wilson. Doesn't happen until
Wow.
the end of '94. That MSG.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few hints of it
I
throughout fall
forgot about
'94, but that
that.
MSG version, their first show at MSG, they open up with Wilson and Trey's at the front of the stage, just like fist pumping the audience. And there was never another Gamehenge after that until this one. So yeah, this was the first time we really got
Wow.
like full crowd participation for it. So yeah, I mean, some aspects of the story change, and I'm guessing that annoys a certain segment of the fan base, but other aspects are enriched as a result of it. And I don't know if there was any jamming in past Gamehenges. So
Yeah.
Mm.
Definitely not.
So it's the
Definitely
best one
not.
then.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to say that.
It's the best show.
It's the
show.
best,
best show
Best show
one
ever.
that happened last year.
It's best. It's the best.
I think
this
I
is-
think the Great Woods version is still
It's a solid prototype.
it's a
Nothing else.
very yeah, if you want to hear Gamehenge and the band give everything that they have in front of 15,000 people, I've always heard of that show as kind of the like hat tip, the send off to the Northeast as the band was just exploding in popularity. We've got
Mm.
everybody here a year earlier. This was our biggest show ever. Let's give you the most special thing that we've ever done. It's kind of similar here, you know, who
Yeah.
knows what the future holds. This does not sound to me like a band that is stopping anytime soon, for a lot of reasons. And so maybe
can
we
I
can just
answer
finally
that
put this
note?
to bed. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
I just want to
'cause, you
say
know,
I'm a Crest Theater person.
that's a great one too. It's
That's
great.
a very good
I
one.
think that's the best besides
I've
this one,
seen
obviously.
I
He's like-
saw somebody talking about how Fish has peaked now and then not time to go on and see other bands. And I'm like, okay, you go right ahead and see other bands, but that's nonsense. Gamehenge may have peaked and be off to the side for now, but the way this band is playing overall, certain set one or a couple set ones aside, this band has a lot left to give. And I think that the trend of monster jams and all that is going to continue here into 2024. And this band is going to be fucking fire, and don't miss them.
Can't imagine that this, what you were saying, Jonathan, and what Andrew just asked, does this change things for any? I did see people, I assume they were joking, who said like, all right, now that they did Gamehenge, I'm
No.
not, there's nothing else I can see. I mean, if anything, it just does what you said, which is it reinforces that they're still doing amazing shit, and they will continue
Yeah, they
to.
have a
That's my
festival this
takeaway.
year.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you always see online people be like, oh, if I could hear Fish play this one song, I'd quit it. Like I'd be done. You know, the chase would be over. And like all it does is create a new chase. You know, it just
Yeah.
there's
Right.
things you've never seen. There's things the band has never done. They played "And So to Bed" for the first time 2 years ago. There are still songs that they have not played. They have never debuted. Nobody thought they'd ever play "End of Session." There are songs that have not been busted out, "Melt the Guns" since the 1980s that they could
Round
still
room at the
happen.
Sphere. Come on.
Which is bullshit, by the way.
Full round
It's
room.
all
yeah.
happening.
Melt the guns. This needs to come back. Bart, hey Bart, this motivates Bart to keep going hard. See, that's what I'm
Good,
saying.
good man. Good
Hell
man.
yeah.
saying.
Me too.
Brian says the triple nipple is still eluding him, and yeah, you know, got to see it.
Does this open the door for a slow piper?
Um,
Can't have that.
All right,
Nobody
guys.
can have that.
guys,
All
we have 1 minute left by rules of many things. What's one final takeaway from this?
Don't stop seeing Fish.
Great.
I think they close out an incredibly strong year of Fish with an amazing show on the 29th and a legendary show on the 31st and some great moments on the 28th and 30th. And I'm excited as hell for 2024 Fish.
Fish is the best band on the planet. They love us and they love to make us happy. And for a band in its 41st year, they delivered incredibly hard this year and they have big plans for next year. The Sphere, we've got a festival. I think 24, even though it's an even year, maybe it'll beat the odds and be great.
What phrasing. Andrew Duddy, though, chasing his 60 waves. That is the next thing on deck.
Hell yeah.
is
Or a wave
Fish
of hope.
figuring out a way to play over an hour. I don't care what song it is. I don't care.
It's gonna be-
it could
it's
be
gonna
an
be
hour-long
like
60-minute drift while you're sleeping, and I will be happy.
It's
That's
gonna-
just
Will you though?
That would
if
be
they
the
do
biggest
it, it's
troll
gonna
of
be
all.
like bouncing or something. I swear.
Yeah.
I would love
Guys,
that.
for
That is so
for
great.
someone who is so famously forward looking, I'm still like really shocked that Trey particularly like went for this to
That
go
far
back and like there's the one when I had people here who were not Fish fans on New Year's Eve, and the way I described it was, this is the thing that Fish fans most want to see and have most wanted to see for 30 years.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
the fact that they
Yeah.
did what the fans want as opposed to what they want, or maybe it aligned, but also that they looked back that much. They just don't do that very much, and I think that's the most notable thing. And it worked so perfectly.
I mean,
Agreed.
I don't think that they looked back like this since the New Year's Eve 2013 show, where they set up
Yeah.
on that truck and they
yeah.
played with hockey sticks as mic stands, and they played on their old gear, and they played
Yeah.
all 80s songs,
Yeah.
early 90s songs. Like this is a very rare thing. You're absolutely right. And I think
Yeah.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like I kind of got to a point where it's just like they're never going to play it, and that's okay. Like that was
Yeah.
a pass.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
they never needed to bring this back, but the fact that they thought the fact that they did it. One
Yeah.
of my best friends was at this show, and I don't want to say how many shows he's been to because people are going to get pissed at him because it's not a lot, and he had very good seats.
Yeah,
But
you
he
can
was
just go ahead and
texting
tell
me.
us. Just tell us how many.
He was texting me during the show.
This is my third
Eh,
show. Oh my god.
Kind of like that. And he was texting me, and he was like, "Man, I wish you were at this." And I was doing I'm okay, I'm fine. But he was like, "People are crying around me." He was like, "What the fuck is going on? People are crying." And I was like, "Yeah, like to RJ's point, this is what Fish fans have been asking for 30 years, and the band gave it to them."
It's
I would
so
s-
great.
I would
Yeah,
also just
it's the
pitch in that
best.
it's not just looking back, though. This was a new creation. This is also like, bringing it into the now,
Totally.
not just looking back.
Yeah,
So-
Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
definitely.
Updated.
Totally.
Mhm.
That's a really
Yeah.
good point. They didn't
Right,
just
they
play
didn't play
the
like a
93,
throwback
94
set.
version. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which I
So-
think is so Fish.
So Fish, Brian, according to our schedule, we are going to have a brand new episode next week,
I can't wait.
and we are going to start talking about our we're going to start talking about the top 25 tours of all time. We have a few episodes coming your way, and then we are going to get into the top 25 tours of all time. I actually have a suggestion for next week's show because we're going to choose a show, and I have a suggestion, but we can
already have
wait until then.
already have a episode planned for next week. We're going to have to talk about
Look at
this
the
offline
spreadsheet,
because the,
RJ.
the
Look at the
schedule is
spreadsheet.
already made.
All
Time
right.
Next
for dinner,
week, should I
guys.
get-
We can talk about this on the textual. Like, nobody needs to hear this kind of stuff.
No, they do. They want to
I don't know
hear
how
it.
the sausage is made.
Well,
Everyone's
can I
still
just say, because this is I'm very excited about next week's episode because this is my creation. We are going to do
Oh,
a
yeah.
fish year draft.
Oh,
We are
right.
going to
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
We're going
I'm
to
excited
draft
about this.
our favorite fish years and explain why we're drafting them. And we are it's going to be so much fun. We are going to come up with a list of 6 years that are our years, that are the years that we covet more than any others. But someone might steal your favorite year. Someone might
Yeah.
draft 97 before Megan. Someone
Anybody
might
you guys
draft.
take 97 from me, I will cut you.
Someone might take 2003 from me. RJ
Nobody
might
would
lose
do that.
1991, his favorite year in fish history.
Nobody better take it.
The suspense. So that is gonna be
Guys,
next
it's
week's episode.
happening.
Really fun.
Love you
We're not
guys.
doing a bracket.
Have a good night. Have a good year.
Happy New
Have
Year.
a good